Welcome back to the channel, folks, and to another battle report. We've got Laurence and Tom going up against each other again. Bit of a rematch. Let's see how it works out. But first of all, over to the players to talk about the list they're bringing today. Right, Tom, welcome back to the channel. You're bringing Germans again today, and you're playing Laurence's Soviets. So what is in your list?
Right, so it's a Panzer formation. So a Panzer IV formation, so HQ of 2 Panzers, a platoon of 4 Panzer IVs, a platoon of 3 Panthers, and 2 verbal Vins are in the formation. And then in support, I've got 3 Hetzers, Vesps with a observer, and then I've got a unit of Panzer Grenadiers. But there's a few wildcards to add to this. Firstly, I'm 16th Panzer, so my tactics rating on the formation units is 1 less than normal, but I get a point discount. I've got the lucky card, and then perhaps the more interesting part of that is I'm playing this Verband, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, man card. And what that does is that for any Panzer Grenadier unit taken as a support choice, their stats remain more or less the same, aside from the fact they become reluctant, but they counterattack on the 3+. However, importantly, they can deploy in addition to your 60% of your force, should you have reserves. So essentially, you get to deploy 60 plus the Verband. What that means is that the amount of reserves you have to have is actually less than the usual 40%. It's essentially 40% minus the cost of this Verband. So
that could be useful when you've got like what's it, the mobile reserve rules and things like that.
Yeah.
When you've not got the mobile reserve rules, because if you had the mobile reserve rules, you're going to have them on anyway.
Yeah.
That sounds quite interesting, because that could get you a nice strong force on the table. Hopefully, you're not going to be defended, but who knows? Have you chosen a mission tactics yet?
I'm going to go manoeuvre.
Manoeuvre, okay. Well, we'll find out what Laurence wants to do, but first I'll go over to him, and then when we're done there, I'll have a look at the list, just show the guys what's actually going to be on the table before we come back to the game. So I'll get back to you in a minute.
Right.
Right, Laurence, welcome back to the channel. You're going to be playing Tom today. He's got his Germans that he's been trying for a couple of games. You've got your Soviets again. Could you tell us what you've brought?
Yep, thanks, Frank. Unsurprisingly, I have gone for another T-34 tank list. I'm determined to try and make it work. I just love Bindless, so I've gone for it again. So for me, it's just a T-34 tank battalion. Commander's a T-34, 76mm. So part of my main kind of formation, I've got 5 T-34s, with 2 of them upgunned to the 76mm. I have 2 platoons of them actually, so that's so
85.
So I've got 11 T-34s and 4 of them being 76mm. I've got the little T-70s as well, 5 of those just to cause a bit of nuisance. I've got the 6 stands of the 82mm mortars. Excellent if you can range in and just leave it there for the whole game, because they are green, so it's very difficult to actually range in with them. So to support them, just a Hero SMG company. Just released something to get shot at. Really, they tend to just soak up. They get hit and not do a lot, but I do like them. In support, I've gone for some Whoppers. I've gone for some 152mm howitzers. So I haven't played them, the big ones as yet, but hopefully they can do some damage. I've got an observer for them. And to kind of back it all up, I've got my 4 IS-2 tanks. So can't leave home without them.
There's a good match up here of medium tanks and heavy tanks then. So we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to go over, show the viewers what the lists look like on the table, and then when we come back, we'll get you two guys together, we'll just discuss the mission and get ready to start.
Perfect.
Tom's formation. These tanks here are the core of the formation. Company HQ of 2 Panzer IVs, platoon of 4 Panzer IVs, platoon of 3 Panthers. These are Weberwins. I know they're mobile wagons, but we're using them as Weberwins. And then in support he's got the kind of ubiquitous Westport battery with Panzer III Observer. Then some Hitzers. We'll see what the Hitzers can do in this game. There is at least not too many cross checks for them to worry about. And Panzer Grenadier platoon. They've got a Faust but no Shrek. So it's got a decent amount of armour, and it's got decent amount of anti-tank in there too. So we'll see how it gets on. So here we have Lawrence's mixed bag of heavy, light and medium armour. It's quite a big core formation, so the HQ in a 76mm, then 2 platoons of 5 with the 285mm for a bit more hitting power. Then you've got 6 mortars, 7 SMG with a commissar, and then 5 T70s. Backing up, his support is, now these are 122s, but we'll use them as the 152s, the Observer, and then 4 big heavy IS2s. So it's a good combination there of quick moving, well armoured, hard hitting, potentially nuisance value, and hard hitting artillery. So we'll see how it gets on. The IS-2 is a Soviet heavy tank that was designed in response to German heavies such as the Tiger tank. It is aggressive and hit on a 3+. It is a veteran, so it passes skill checks on a 3+. It's got a confident motivation rating, so passes checks on a 4+, but it does pass counterattacks on a 3+ and last stand on a 3+. It's got a tactical move of 10 inches, a cross check of 3+ because it's a little bit heavier than other tanks. It has a 122mm gun with a range of 28 inches, a rate of fire of 1, anti-tank 14 and firepower 2+. The gun has got a brutal rule and also the slow firing rule, so it's a penalty to fire this gun on the move. It's got an anti-aircraft MG and 1 dice of ordinary MG fire for those softer targets. Panther tanks are rated as careful, confident, veteran. They've got a good 10-inch tactical move with a cross-country dash of 20 inches and a good cross-check of 2+. The gun has got an excellent 40-inch range, rate of fire of 2, anti-tank 14 and firepower 3. Combined with the frontal armour of 9, these make a very good head-on tank killing vehicle. The side armour is not so good, so you want to be taking as much advantage as possible of your range and your good frontal armour to defeat any armoured opponents you're up against. Today's mission we rolled for counterattack. It's one of these quite challenging missions because it's got these kind of like quarter deployments, so it's very important when you're defender that you choose something you can defend but also something you can move into. Now just move the screen down a bit. You can see it can be quite complex how this is laid out, but basically the defender chooses a quarter and then the attacker chooses a quarter adjacent to that but not diagonally opposite, because that's where the reserves will arrive. Go down a bit, so there you can see they're showing what the available adjacent quarters would look like depending on, this is for the other objectives, depending on where the attacker is going to attack from, but you can never choose the diagonally opposite. So special rules are quite simple: ambush and immediate reserves. Nothing more than that. The objectives don't come live until turn 6. That gives the defender time to get up out of the deployment zone and into the other objective zone to try and get on that objective. So it's a race of sorts to get your guys on the objective and then either kick the opponent off or just try and hold on to it yourself, depending on who arrives first. So there you go, folks. Today's mission: counter-attack. So folks, we have everything deployed. The mission we rolled for was counter-attack. Tom chose this corner. It's going to be quite interesting with the river because it's a quarter mission and the river snakes through the middle. But Tom chose this corner to defend and Laurence this corner to attack from. Tom's reserves will come on over there. Now, on the table, well, first of all, sorry, objectives. Tom's placed an objective behind the church there, and Laurence placed his there. That's the deployment zones. I've got to say, folks, this is the funky quarter style semicircle around the middle of the table type deployment zones. So, objectives there and there. Tom has his Panzer IVs in ambush, his Panthers in reserve. Then he's got his Sperver band around here, kind of in the church, over the river, over the bridge, blocking the bridge, doing what they do, a Sperver band sort of blocking group. He's got his west behind the church, Wirbelwinds, company command, observer and Hitzers. Now that's not a dead Hitzer, that's the ranged in marker for the mortars, ranged in marker for the 122s, and there's a ranged in marker for the Wesps in there. So Laurence has got IS-2s, observer, T-70s, Hero SMGs, all the T-34s including the company commander, the mortars, and then the 122s. So it's kind of squeezed in to that deployment zone, but they are kind of squaring right up to each other at the very start of this game. So there you go, folks. Mission's counter-attack, everyone's ready to go. We'll clear all this stuff up off the table and be back for the end of turn 1. Soviet turn 1. So these guys here just bombed it with their mad dash speed, road dash of 28 inches. The infantry, they also dashed up to the edge of the field there. These guys done a bit more of a tactical move. I think they actually might have dashed, to be honest, to get to the corner. I'm not sure, but anyway, keeping out of line of sight of the Marders behind the house there. These guys fired at the Marders but needed 6s because it got on the ground. So that really just left some shooting after the guys, some shooting from the artillery. So the mortars ranged in here, got a couple of hits, but no kills. There was one failed firepower, but one failed save, but then one failed firepower. And then round the church, the 122s have ranged in and managed to hit by coming in from the side, from the observer there. They managed to get the Wesps, got a couple of hits and one bail. So that's it for Soviet turn 1. Over to the Germans, and I think they're rolling for reserve right away, so it could get interesting right away. German turn 1. In terms of motivation, the Wesp got back in behind the church there, the infantry unpinned with support of the company commander. The Panzer IVs ambushed here. There's 3 there and 1 went off in that direction to support those Wirbelwinds, but it got stuck on the hedge. No reserves. These 2 Hitzers moved off whilst that one stood still to shoot over at these T-34s. They got a couple of hits. One hit maybe. Anyway, it's saved. So there's no damage there. And then the artillery ranged in over here, but only got a couple of hits out of all that infantry, and they both saved. The only real damage this turn was the ambushing Panzer IVs plus the company command. Between them managed to destroy 3 and bail 1 of the T-70s, firing through that area there, so they've taken a bit of a beating. So they guys will have to unpin if they want to move forward. We'll see what Laurence can do about that next turn. Soviet turn 2, basically a lot of movement here. In terms of motivation though, they unpinned, he did not get back in, but they passed the last stand. These guys have kind of dashed up, they're kind of waiting for the reserves to arrive, but then being careful about being shot by these Panzer IVs, because they can get into range. One is already in range. Then these guys just dashed over from here, heading towards the objective. They blitzed and then moved, so they're over the river, they're at least out of the water, and they're out of line of sight of most of this stuff over here. And that left shooting, oh sorry, one of these pulled back out of line of sight. And then in terms of shooting, it was really just artillery, but it did have some effect. One of the Wesps got blown up, you can see that smoke there, and one of the infantry got killed by the mortars. So not a lot of shooting that turn, but a hell of a lot of movement towards that objective there. So German turn 2. The infantry to unpin, and they did so. 2 dice for reserves, didn't get anything, so Tom burned his lucky to get the Panthers on the table and into the game. Then he's trying to manoeuvre his assets around from this. It's a bit tricky. He left 1 Panzer IV here, tried to move the other ones around, but he just kept hitting particularly thick bits of hedges, so they're kind of strung out. Company command had blitzed up to here, because from that position they had the range and line of sight on the T-34s. The wearable ones moved onto the wood to put some cover down over here. The Hetzers moved into position where they were in cover and could see these infantry, and one mad guy is just charged forward to try and shoot a T-70. And then in terms of shooting, the West's ranged in over here, only 2 guns, but they still managed to get 2 and pin the rest. These guys here managed to kill 176. The Hetzers, especially this poor guy, never managed to hit anything, and the Panthers managed to kill an IS-2 because they managed to get him in the back. If it had been hit in the front, the roll that was made would have been a save, but it was enough to get it killed. So everything's on the table now, folks. That objective, remember, doesn't go live in turn 6. Its next turn is turn 3, so we'll see what Laurence can do in retaliation. Soviet turn 3. In terms of motivation, the T-70 stuck around the infantry unpinned. In terms of movement, the infantry blitzed and followed me from behind the hill onto the objective, and to a large extent behind the wood, but not completely. The T-34 platoon that was on the road has moved into the wood. Did lots of cross checks, but they're a 2-up cross check. And these guys have cross country dashed as much as possible to get 45 inches away from these. So they're going to take a full move if they want to have any shots on them. These move tactically to have a go at the Hetzer. So they, as you can see, hit the Hetzer, killed it. The T-70 didn't do anything, it's just hanging about. Over here, the artillery managed to hit Panzer IV, but it saved a Wesp and it got bailed. And then the mortars rearranged in and managed to, this turn they were lucky, they managed to kill a base straight away in their first round of shooting. So that's it, the Soviets are getting strong on that objective. Most of those tanks cannot be seen unless you're within 6 inches off the objective. So we'll see what Tom wants to do about that in his turn 3. So German turn 3. Lots and lots of busy movement for the Germans that turn. They're moving all the Panzer IVs up there to deal with the threat of the T-34s. The Wirbelwinds were going to try and come out to shoot up some infantry, but failed the blitz. So they're just going to stay put. The West moved with a shooting scoot, as did the Observer, and the Panthers are needing to get towards that objective, so they're just moving under cover of smoke. There's only 4 markers there because they're down 1 gun, so that's going to give them a degree of protection. And that was only shooting this turn, because it was all about positioning to counter-attack basically. So we'll see what Laurence can do to deal with that. Soviet turn 4. So the wee T-70 sticking around, and that was about it really in terms of motivation. In terms of movement, these T-34s don't like all those Panzer IVs, so they've backed off behind a wood as much as they can. These guys managed to dig in. The IS-2s managed a blitz that got them at long range in sight of the guy on the bridge, and in terms of shooting they got 3 shots, 1 hit on the side, so straight firepower, 2 up firepower it was a goner. Artillery, the 122s lifted, because there was nothing under the template as the West had moved, ranged in there, got 3 hits but they all saved, and the mortar stayed put against 1 guy and didn't get any hits. So the counter-attack is still very much on. German turn 4. No motivations there to worry about. I can't quite remember. It's quite a long turn. Maybe the Sperver band unpinned, but I can't remember. So in terms of movements, the Panzer IVs have moved in for the kill. The Panthers are not looking to shoot any juicy targets, they're just looking to get up there to that objective. The Hitzers blitzed to get shots on the IS-2s, and then Suicide Squad, Wirbelwinds have moved up to block the gap in the wood there. There's bits of wood sticking everywhere, folks. It's just the templates were getting really busy. So in terms of shooting, the West's ranged in over here. Didn't get any casualties, but that's them ranged in now, and the guys are pinned. The Panthers tried machine gun shots, didn't have any luck. And then these tanks here, they got a total of 6 shots, and they managed to destroy 2 85s, a 76 and Bale a 76, so that's not too bad return at all on that platoon of T-34s, which has now got 1 bailed and 1 alive. So we'll see what that little island of T-34s does in response. Soviet turn 5. So the T-70 has just been hanging about, just ran away. These guys here, we forgot to actually roll to unpin them. We'll come back to that. The Belgian tank got back in, that's important. So there was no last stand required. In terms of movement, only 1 tank kind of shuffled through the woods up that line there, that 85, to get shots on these guys. And in terms of shooting, they got hammered. They got 3 85 hits and a 76mm hit. That's the Wirbelwinds. But over here, 3 hits I think all in on the company command, but only killed 1. So there's a lot of Panzer IVs left alive over there. The ISs managed to get a 1 hit at long range concealed on these guys, but a 6 was rolled, so boing. Now the 122 is actually ranged in over here, got a hit but no kill, and here the mortars managed to kill a base of infantry, managed to get a hit and a kill. So turn 5, let's see what Tom can do this turn to kick those nasty Soviets off that objective. German turn 5, so it's getting critical. So the Panthers had to move right up to the objective. The Panzer IVs had plenty of juicy targets, so just stood still to fire. The Hitzers kind of edged up, we not really got much to do. And then in shooting, 1 T-34 dead, company command destroyed but moved on to another still alive tank, and 1 T-34 bailed in that platoon there, you see there. And then over here, combination of Panther and the Panzer IV command managed to kill and bail a couple of tanks in that platoon. So the only thing active in there is the company command there. So it's going to be really important to see if they can get anything back in. And then who says Panthers can't assault? because those Panthers went in. One got bailed, but between them they managed to kill 6 bases of hero SMGs. So still up to play for. It really depends on what happens with motivation. So we'll go over to Germans for the critical turn 6. Soviet turn 6, and turned out to be the last turn. And turn 6 is the critical turn in this game, in this mission, because that's when the objectives go live. So in terms of motivation then, Laurence did pretty well. They only failed to get 1 tank back in. It didn't run away. And these guys all here managed to get back in. These guys are now here. He managed to successfully cross-check out of the woods and get around the side of those Panthers. And basically that's what ended the game. Regardless of anything else that might have happened on the table, those guys managed to get them in the flank, got 2 hits, 2 kills, and that was the end of them. Which means he's ending his turn, starting his turn within 4, ending his turn within 4 with no other teams within 4 inches of that objective. So that is a win for the Soviets then, folks. So let's go over for a recap. We're not going to get Tom and Laurence together for a recap, guys, as we normally do. This game finished quite late on a weekday, so I'm just going to do a quick recap myself with a bit of hindsight on my part. So first of all, this mission's really quite tricky, because you're the defender, but you're actually the attacker, because you have to go get an objective whilst holding on to an objective. So your opponent, like in this case, can put pressure that way and then run off and get the objective. So then your reserves have to come in and attack the objective, unless you somehow manage to slow the attack down so that the attacker is not already here. Now in this game, up against really quick moving T-34s, that was always going to be pretty difficult. So very tricky game. Choosing your deployment zone is very important. Tom chose a very secure defensive kind of deployment zone, but it also was a tricky zone to get out of, because he had to either start in the open, which wasn't very advisable, or stay in cover. He had to do cross checks, which slowed him down. When he popped to ambush to get these guys, the T-70s, he then had to get himself around the church. Couldn't go forward because of company command, sitting, shooting, had to go around. It took quite a while. With the advantage of hindsight, I would have chosen this as my deployment zone. If the objective was over there, there is at least cover to move into. If the objective is over here, there is a bit of cover, maybe not as much, but there is some cover, and reserves could come on with plenty of cover over there, and I think I would have put all the Panzer IVs in reserve. A deliberate move to have a strong counter-attacking force, because this game is all about, for the defender, it really is all about counter-attacking. And the Panthers on the table over here in ambush, they could take anything coming in for any direction, maybe even wipe these guys out in a couple of turns, and then deal with T-34s at their leisure, almost backed up by free hetzers. But that's just my thoughts. As far as Lawrence's game goes, he just did the right thing with his T-34s, just up the road like rockets. He had the chance to be aggressive. You see this very effective counter-attack that was coming in, but just a bit too late, and the Panther side was too weak. But this strong counter-attack coming in, he could have used this platoon here to attack it, to come out around the woods, get those first few critical shots in that make all the difference. Because when the first shots came in here from those Panzer IVs, it was night for those T-34s that got a bit of a stuffing. And by the way, who says Panthers can't assault? They managed to kill 6 bases of hero SMGs by themselves, 2 of them, so Panthers can assault if the dice are kind to you. You don't need a top armour too, otherwise you wouldn't do much assaulting with many tanks. So, hard game for Tom. Had some tough choices to make, and he did attempt to get to that objective as quick as he could after the initial contact, but terrain was against him, and the T-34s, Lawrence's T-34s, they just did the right thing and went charge. So there you go, folks. Hope you enjoyed the game. Thanks to Tom, thanks to Lawrence for playing. Thanks to all you guys that have subscribed. If you'd like to and you've not subscribed already, please do so, because it will help us build the channel and bring this kind of content to more people who like the game of Flames of War. Thank you again for watching, folks, and I'll see you on the next one.